Madison, Wisconsin is as good as it gets if you are like me and you love the college sports.
This is the Jump Around with Jim Rutledge and Pablo Iglesias, streaming live on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel.
Dancing down the sidelines. Can they catch him? No! The Badgers answer instantly. There will be no undefeated champion on Wisconsin with an unbelievable stretch drive to the championship game. Gordon again! Inside the 5, touchdown! What a performance by Melvin Gordon!
Chucky Hepburn, Big Ten on the line. Yes!
Legacy cemented. The 2021 Badgers will go down in history as the first ever at Wisconsin to win a national championship.
That is the best college sports town in America.
It is the Jump Around, a Badger-dedicated show here on ESPN Madison's YouTube. You'll stream the show back on the all-new ESPN Wisconsin app. No Pablo Iglesias today as he is out in P Vegas, as Riley likes to call it, delivering some pizza out to Mark Tauscher and the crew out there. And they did a live show. Mark did out at Platteville as the Badgers are practicing out there. I still have Riley Yauk with me in the Everlight studio behind the glass. Riley got the W hat on. I like the hat. Sometimes these Badger hats are hard to find. A good one. I like that one.
Yeah, I found this one on eBay. It's actually one of the old baseball hats
Nice.
from like the 1980s, 1970s team. I was proud of this find. I was proud of this.
I think you should be. And it's a great looking hat. And because the Badgers, we all love the Badgers. We all like buying Badger gear, but it is tough, I think, to find Badger gear that like I get super excited about, to be fully honest.
Yeah, I feel like I know this is trendy right now, and you see me wearing this a lot on the show, but like the vintage gear.
Yes.
Probably more from like the 90s. That's when the Badgers started becoming relevant enough to have cool gear, and maybe early 2000s. Because some of I like a lot of the new stuff, but it just doesn't hit the same as all of the vintage gear with Bucky on it, with the old sort of motion W and that sort of style. It hits a little different. So
it
that's
does.
what I look for.
And again, red's not really my color as well. So like, it's just a lot. You know, it's not like it's not my color. Like it doesn't show my skin right, my eyes right. It's just a lot. So I don't own a lot of red things because I just feel a little too bold in it. So I do like the gray for like the sweatshirts and stuff like that. Obviously, the hat you got to go red is really just a good look for because the black to me is almost too generic. Like every team can just roll out of black with the W and call it their team. It's not really the Badgers' colors, so that's always kind of tough. So I am curious, and I know this isn't in the rundown, but I remember Badger fans were all upset about Adidas and all excited about Under Armour. Under Armour didn't slap the way I think we thought it was going to. I think a lot of Badgers fans thought to be a lot more trial and maybe error with the uniforms, better overall gear and everything. That has not been the case.
No, not at all. And I think uniforms, and that's a good tease for the Twitter portal later. I have a little uniform tweet that someone threw out there. But I know that's what I was excited for. I'm a huge uniform guy and was hoping they'd experiment a little bit. I even created some old concepts back in the day of like a W that wrapped around the helmet and Wisconsin across the chest because I thought the motion W didn't quite work.
Yeah.
And
even
but
just
it's
more
really,
matte things.
Exactly.
Like in Oregon.
Throwing a little black.
Yeah, something there. Or go back to the old school. They had Bucky on the helmet for a while.
Yes, that's what I want. Either Bucky on the helmet, but I understand the motion W is kind of iconic at this point, but just get Bucky on the sleeves. Like, please, you could have Bucky in the motion W, how they used to have Bucky in the W on the jersey sleeves. Like, oh, that would fire me up so much if we could go back to that. With the stripes wrapping around the W, I don't have a picture on hand of what it looks like, but more Bucky. We need more Bucky involved in the branding. We got away from that, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, I think it was just overall. It's kind of like, and the Brewers have reverted back. Like, they got away from the MB, and now everyone's like, no, like that should just be their regular uniform. Put the pinstripes back on them, too. And I think you've seen that with the Milwaukee Bucks as well. I think I want to see more Bango for the Bucks, to be honest.
I totally agree. Like, why not? Why not involve the mascots more? I feel like we just with like modern branding, we got away from using mascots. Everything's got to be simple. You got to be able to put it in black and white, and it's got to look good on an app, so there's less detail.
Yeah.
Like, let's go back to some classic mascot-oriented uniforms. Like, they always look awesome.
I like it. So I don't know if that's indicative of how fall camp is going, or we're starting with talking about the uniforms, but I'll say this. The fall camp things that I've heard, it sounds like Dylan Jones is going to lock himself up this starting job at the running back position. I think he had a great day today is what I've seen from multiple places, and that's exciting. I think that's a point to be excited about as far as the overall depth at the running back position, especially because Jeff Grimes, I think, is going to use all three, including Cade Yakimelli, who was a freak according to The Athletic, and we'll get to that a little bit later. That's a positive term. And then also Dupree. I think all three can work well together. I think this offense is going to be simpler, and I think simple is good for college kids. Not that they're not smart enough to pull it off, but in theory, they're still supposed to be student athletes and going to class, and they're still learning and growing in football. So you got to lay down the groundwork to make life a little bit easier for them. I mean, we see that at the NFL level with the Packers, where one of the things they got away from Dom Capers was because Dom Capers was running out a different set of defense for every team out there, and the guys were thinking too much instead of just performing. So I am excited about the running back room overall, and Dylan Jones specifically. Mark Tauscher joined Jim Matt and Maui, the show I host weekdays here on ESPN Madison yesterday, and actually we can hear from Mark when we have that ready here. So
you were down in Platteville today watching the Badgers. I just want to know, what was your main takeaway? What were you most impressed with watching the Badgers practice today?
Sure. To me, and again, man, this is one practice, and I said this about watching some of the spring ball as well. The noticeable difference on the size, how big our defensive line, and we have a lot of big bodies now. It's practice. There's guys that I think are going to be really good players and a big upgrade on that side of the ball from what we saw last year. But you will notice, the first thing I noticed and what I really was paying attention to today was just the size, and the defensive line I think is going to be much deeper and much more productive than what we saw last year.
And that's exciting. And it does match a little bit, I think, what we've seen on paper as far as the team. Some of the guys they added, they got bigger. I haven't confirmed this, but someone mentioned to me that I think last year they had maybe one player over 300 pounds on the D-line. This year they have six or on the defense in general.
That is correct.
And then you look at Parker Peterson, Charles Perkins, who's been called out as a really exciting player by Evan Flood. He did that. Corey Walker, Michael Gardner. Those are all transfers, let alone some of the players returning. But Ben Barton is a player that I think can make some noise on that D-line. And then you have another one in Javier Suggs, another young player that I think has added some size while they've been here. And then you have some other players like Brandon Lane returning as well, Jameel Howard. So there's just this mix of big bodies down there, and I think more than they've had in the past. And it looked like they were worn out at the end of the year. It looked like I think, did they quit some? Yeah, I don't, like, in this day and age of transfer and everything like that, I don't fully blame them. I don't think they quit, but it's just like there's a term like a lot of times in work where it's like someone silent quit, where it's like they're showing up, they're doing their stuff, but they're not going.
They're going through the motions.
Yes. And I'm not faulting the kids for it. But I think also because they were physically worn out. It wasn't just like, oh, we're not winning, I'm done. It's, we're not winning, we're getting our butts kicked, and I'm just spent. And I probably lost 15 pounds throughout the course of the year for some of these players.
I'm just smaller than every offensive lineman I face. I don't know if you watched, they posted it on their Twitter account, but Ben Barton was mic'd up, I believe, yesterday at camp. And I know he's gotten a lot of flack over the past couple years, hasn't really contributed all that much to the D-line, but he sounded like a leader now as one of the veteran guys on this team, and sort of bringing all these transfers into the Wisconsin culture and kind of educating them on it. It seemed like he takes charge of that defensive lineman room, which I think is really important and something that may get overlooked, and it's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but it was really cool just listening to that 3-minute supercut of his best moments from training camp yesterday.
And I think if you talk to people around the program, how bad it was, I don't know, but there's been a culture problem over the last 2 years, especially that year one. and some of those players not wanting to buy in, maybe had hurt feelings because their coach was let go or Jimmy Leonard wasn't brought in. So it's on Coach Fickell. It's not on the players. It's on Coach Fickell to bring in the right players that are going to fit, but also to have a cohesion there. And I think Phil Longo being out and Jeff Grimes coming in will help some of that. But I also the other thing I wanted to call out here as far as something I'm excited about from fall camp feelings is the O-line I feel good about. I got left tackles.
Even with the injury at left tackle?
That's still up in the air. But, I mean, Leighton Nelson is someone that can play, I think. I've seen Emerson Mandela has gotten his different pops into the starting lineup at different locations. They've been moving a lot of guys around, too. But I think Brunner and Renfro and Riley, when you have three guys that I feel very confident in, and now you're just trying to find – and you have a decent amount of players here that can fill the other two holes. I've seen that Ben Schwal has also – popped in a few different locations. So there's some talent there. It's unproven, and left tackle is the most important position, but I think you have three guys you can really count on.
I would agree. And is there anything that concerns you now? We're almost, we're 3 weeks exactly away from the start of the season. Is there anything right now that still sticks out? If you're confident about the O-line, feeling better about the D-line, and really like the running back room, is there anything you don't like or that still gives you pause as it stands right now?
For me, it's still going to be overall the defense. The cornerbacks specifically, that room is thin now, and I don't know how they fix that. And the defense, it's been kind of an underreported story that they have not been as good as I think we expected them to be under Tressel. And hopefully the players they brought in will be there, but the defense, as far as the coaching staff, has remained status quo. And so they brought in a few, looks like, maybe a few new starters on the transfer side of it with Trainer and Rieger and Peterson and Walker and maybe Perkins, in the mix. So there's some transfers coming in will make some plays, and some other players will grow like Peterson and Curtis. But I'm worried about it overall. I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but that's one you got to show it to me a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's going to come down to late season. I think they'll be just fine even when they're out-talented against teams like Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State. But say they lose all of those 3-4 big games, maybe they beat Iowa. Are they able to hold up then getting down the stretch where they failed last season against the Indianas, the Illinois, and the Washingtons of the world? So we shall see.
I don't know how much time we want to spend on the not-so-special teams. I want to get to top traditions, and we do have Jake Kocorowski joining the show around 1:20 or so. But the special teams is something I think you can be worried about. Badger Wire ranked them 12th in the Big Ten heading into the season. Bertram's is a good punter, and I think you can count on him maintaining that. He's still, I want more consistency, but he's still a college punter. And so that's one thing.
I just want to see Bertram's less on the field. I don't want to see him as much as we had to last year.
Yes, that's one way to make him more effective is to make him punt less. But we have seen what Torrey Taylor did with Iowa. And I'm not saying Bertram's can be him, but they beat Wisconsin. Torrey Taylor was the MVP of that game.
Yes.
And so on that point, the one that matters more for the Badgers, because I don't think this team's going to be blowing teams out regularly, is Vacos. And look, 80% isn't great, but that's basically where he was in 2023. Last year was abysmal. And borderline, he shouldn't be on a team level. So
that's not a Big Ten kicker. 63% is not a Big Ten.
That's not a college kicker, really. That's high school. So that has to change. 85% would put him in, I think, a upper echelon Big Ten kicker, a kicker that this team needs, because I think there's going to be some games here where he's going to have to put some points on the board for the Badgers. Hopefully less than in years past or closer kicks, but I do think he's going to be needed, and he needs to make more than 63%.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the Nebraska game from last year, but the main reason that they started falling out of that game was because Vacos missed 2 or 3 field goals. Would have been a totally different story.
That's not the only time that's happened with the Badgers. As far as returners and things like that, I don't have a major problem if it ends up being a starter in college. In the NFL, I don't like it. Okay. But in college, you know what? Put your dynamic playmakers on the field wherever you can and let them try to make a play wherever. I know not everything's exactly the same as it used to be, but I still remember Charles Woodson returning punts and kicks. Just get them out there and trust that they're not going to get hurt. It's different on the professional level, and I know these guys get paid, but still, I'm fine with the starters out there in college. Well, you hear the jump around there, and in fact, we have Harry Douglas from ESPN ranking the Badgers jump around as the second best tradition in all college football, only behind Lee Corso's headgear pick, which is great. But this was also done on Lee Corso's 90th birthday, and Lee Corso is going to do one more game this year, and then he will be done as part of the College Game Day crew there. So I honestly kind of see this as number one, but you had to give the nod to Corso.
Yeah, it's kind of tough when it's his birthday and the whole reason they're promoting college traditions is because it's Lee Corso's birthday and he's kind of on his retirement tour right now. So I totally understand, but here is the video of Harry Douglas talking about the jump around as his second best tradition in college football.
You were down in Platteville today watching the Badgers. I just want to know, what was your main takeaway? What were you most impressed with?
Jump up and get down.
Sure. To me, and again, man, this is one practice. I said this about watching some of the spring ball as well. The noticeable
I have
difference
no idea why the other video is still playing.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Tasha playing at the same time, but we did see Harry Douglas do the jump around there. I really do feel like the jump around's got to be up there, especially in game. There's some stuff. What is it? Auburn and Vodtak do some stuff before the game starts.
Yeah, enter Sandman. Yeah. Auburn has the War Eagle that flies around.
So in the Big Ten, I would say unquestionably the best tradition. I mean, I know what Iowa does with the Children's Hospital is incredibly touching and moving and fantastic. But I would give the nod to the jump around and it's hard to just remove the fields around it. But like the jump around is something that organic and something that is a must-see in sports in general. Like, it's one of those things on your sports bucket list. You want to see the jump around in person. So I would put it number one in the Big Ten for sure. I'll say there's an argument. I just don't know every great college tradition, so I don't want to just say, all right, no, because I also haven't experienced the Vodtak Enter Sandman or the War Eagle or some. I know Clemson has some traditions.
Yeah, Howard's Rock. They had Harry Douglas. I don't know if it showed there at the last second, but dotting the I at Ohio State with the band.
Yes.
Notre Dame's Play Like a Champion Today sign.
So there are plenty of them, and I think Wisconsin's in that conversation with them. So, and I don't mean that like knocking down the jump around. I just mean like I got to respect the other ones too. So it's hard to like rank them, but I do see Wisconsin's on that upper echelon.
I would agree. And I think Build Me Up Buttercup, totally underrated.
That's honestly my favorite thing at Camp Randall.
It might be better than Jump Around. And
when the whole crowd sings when they cut it, fantastic.
It's the best. It's the best. And no one outside of Wisconsin knows that exists, which is sad, but that's how it goes.
I have not on this phone, but somewhere I have a recording of at Camp Randall when they upset Ohio State. I was on the field and they cut the song, and it was really an amazing experience to see the whole stadium sing it, to feel it down there, to see what the players see when that happens. They do a good job with Sweet Caroline too, but Build Me Up Buttercup is elite.
Yeah, and it's more unique too. A lot of people do Sweet Caroline. No one else does Build Me Up Buttercup.
Right. Well, and also Jump Around's been kind of stolen, and obviously I don't know if it originated in Wisconsin. I feel like it did, but regardless, Build Me Up Buttercup is almost ours more than anything else.
Exactly.
Cade Giacomelli and Austin Brown are freaks, according to The Athletic, in the best way possible. I will read this quickly, and Riley, you can react, but the junior, talking about Cade Giacomelli, was very effective in limited action, rushing for 274 yards and 2 touchdowns and 33 carries with a gaudy 8.3 yards per carry in 2024. This freak list is really just picking out the biggest freak athletes in college football. And so adding to it, the 5'10", 220-pounder is a very explosive athlete. This offseason, he ran a 4.40, but that probably wasn't his most impressive number. He did a 10.9 3/4 broad jump and clocked a 3.96 shuttle time, squatted 635, and vertical jump 37.5, and did 33 reps of 225 on the bench press. His backfield mate, Jackson Aker, is also pretty freaky, 6'2", 248-pounder who clocked a 4.540. With Cade here, his height is what keeps him at running back, because with some of these explosive numbers, you think he could almost play a linebacker or something like that. But those are the type of numbers, especially, and I think he is going to get the ball this year. It's not going to be the bulk load of the carries, but he could be a guy who ends up backdooring his way into the draft or having a long pro career as a special teamers and doing some more things with these kind of freakish numbers.
Yeah. And just looking at the list, like number 1 is Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State.
It's list number 1 on every list.
Exactly. But being on a list with like guys like that, the cream of the crop of college football, I think is really cool. And I think even more so for Austin Brown. Like I had heard Cade Giacomelli was a crazy athlete and been running these insane 40 times and squatting, but I didn't really know about Austin Brown and how much of a specimen he was until he showed up on this list. And it's cool, going back to a conversation me and Pablo had, just for some Badgers to get this national recognition and get these names out there in front of the masses. I think that's really cool and important as Wisconsin sort of battles back this season.
Austin Brown is on that list, and I just want to point out 585-pound squat, 21 reps of 225, 440, vertical jump of 41 inches. And at a safety, an athletic freak like that is something to be very excited about. But let's get to the Wisconsin Twitter portal.
It's time for the Badgers Twitter portal.
All right, I'm excited about the tweets we have on tap for this week. We have some very good ones, some very pressing questions here from the Badgers faithful across the greater Twitterverse, starting with our friend Not Enough Club.
Okay.
I mentioned the uniforms earlier. This was underneath a practice video that the Badgers put out. Please go back to the block number font. He's not a fan of the current custom Wisconsin sort of script font that they have. So, Jim, what do you say? Do you like the current font? I'll play some B-roll quick here of here's the block font on the practice uniforms.
Okay.
And then here is the current uniform font on their jerseys. Which one do you prefer? Do you want to see them go back to the classic, or do you like their current?
I know we talked about uniforms earlier, and I know this isn't a great answer. I don't care. Okay. And it's more of like I do like some things with the uniform, but the font for me is probably pretty low on the list. But I guess I actually kind of like the ones in the photo you showed.
Yeah,
I kind of like those more. Whichever one those are is probably what I lean towards. It's more of a modern look.
Mm-hmm.
I understand everyone wants to go throwback, but I guess I would lean that way. But the numbers isn't going to do it for me. It's more of like, what are you doing with the red? It's I joke with the Packers. It's like they got the Crayola basic box green and yellow.
Yep.
And like the uniforms, the Packers uniforms, I think could be truly elite if they went with like a matte yellow or an actual gold and went with that darker green.
Yeah.
Because then it's like a modern. It still represents, and you still keep the G, but you also could like with that one. I guess the font, the G, could look a little bit more of this, of the 2000s, and not of like the early 1900s. And that being said, like a lot of Chicago's aren't great either, but the other thing but they've updated their colors at least. And so with the Badgers, like the sharper colors, that matte finish, adding in some black, adding in Bucky, like that's what I want more from the uniforms.
Yeah, totally agree. I want to see more Bucky too. I currently like the custom font. I think it separates them from a Nebraska who has almost identical uniforms.
Yeah.
That's really what I'd like to see, where we're not watching Wisconsin, Nebraska, and it looks like a scrimmage. Anyways, moving on to the second one. This is getting tons of play right now as we speak from Mr. Joe Nunemaker. If the Badgers not winning the game meant a Brewers World Series win, I'm doing that in a heartbeat. I'd sacrifice the next 5 years of Badgers football for it. And I have seen people go to the extreme. I'd sacrifice 10 years. I'd cut the whole UW athletic program for a Brewers World Series. I know you're a Cubs fan, and you have the World Series in 2016, but would you sacrifice 10 years, 5 years, whatever? How much of Badgers football would you sacrifice for a championship in another sport?
That's tough. But even for the Brewers side of it, and I guess this is the biggest thing, is that I'm not a big baseball fan anymore. So, like, the Brewers, right now I care about the Brewers because they're in front of the Cubs, but, like, I'm a Cubs fan. So I don't care that passionate about anything else. So, like, winning a World Series, and we have ours not that long ago. So it's hard for me to fully tie it because baseball I view as, like, it's a nice distraction for football season. And football season kicks back in. I wonder, gosh, we might pull that on Jim, Matt, and Molly because I'd almost go the other way. Like, I would give up my favorite baseball, I guess the Cubs in this case, winning a World Series for the next 5-6 years to have a national title for the Wisconsin Badgers. So, like, I wonder if the guy's actually a Badger fan because
I know some of these accounts, they're like not this one that I put up, but one of the accounts is like, I'd sacrifice 10 years of Badgers football, or I'd sacrifice the whole program. In his bio is like UW Parkside.
Right.
And it's like, come on, you're not a Badger.
And also, like, that's not, if I remember exactly, it's not that close. Like, you can't be a Badger. You can't sacrifice something you're not a diehard fan of.
Exactly.
And I think in Wisconsin, especially when Badger football's down, just like Badger basketball, the fan base dwindles. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think you give up a Packers Super Bowl for a Brewers World Series, and that's more of a true litmus test for Wisconsinites because I think you'd have to do real Badger fans, and I don't think you want another 5 years of bad football or terrible football in the fall for one World Series.
See, I'd sacrifice 10 years of Packers football for a Badgers national title or a Brewers World Series, and I'd sacrifice this season of Badgers football. They suck one more year, get the Brewers World Series, and then everything's hunky-dory.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, and I get that. The one thing for the World Series is that it's such a long haul that, like, if you get it, and the Brewers, honestly, are the closest thing to the Badgers as far as, like, I'm not saying this year they won't do it, the unlikelihood of it happening because of the way the payroll structure in Major League Baseball, and honestly now the payroll structure in college football, it might just be one of those 1 in a million chances.
Yep. And now moving on, last but certainly not least, you don't even need to react to this a ton. This is just me ranting. This pisses me off. Back a while ago, a few weeks ago, I showed you on the Twitter portal, the SEC network posting supposedly the 11th hardest schedules in the country are all in the SEC, whereas Pro Football Focus has Wisconsin as number 1 and 4 other, or maybe 3 other Big Ten teams, yes, UCLA, Rutgers, and Northwestern, in the top 10, which I think is a lot more accurate to the strength of schedules around the country. I just hate SEC bias. It makes me so irritated as a Wisconsin fan.
I don't know for sure, but I feel like the Badgers at minimum have to be in there.
At least Wisconsin has to be in there. We don't need to get into it. That just irritates me to no end.
No, that's fantastic. We can ask Jake Kocorowski.
Yes, I want to hear what Jake thinks.
He's coming up next. He does some stuff for Sports Illustrated. He's also got his own thing, Wisconsin Badger reporter for Badger Observer. So we'll get to him in a minute. But if you're looking for your best night's sleep, get into a new Tempur-Pedic from Steinhofels. Experience Tempur-Pedic's advanced pressure-relieving power designed to help make aches and pains a thing of the past. Right now, Queen Hybrids start at just $52 a month with Steinhofels 60-month financing. Plus, get $300 in Steinhofels cash. Upgrade with an anti-snore adjustable base for your best sleep yet. Steinhofels is your mattress destination. Shop in-store or online today. Jake Kocorowski next.
Steinhofels Labor Day sale starts now. Save 10% off store-wide or use Steinhofels 36-month 0% financing. Plus, get $65 off every $650 you spend. This is the best time to buy a new mattress. Save up to $900 on a Beauty Rest Black adjustable base set. Plus, take advantage of Steinhofels 60-month 0% financing. Steinhofels is Wisconsin's furniture and mattress leader. Shop in-store or online at steinhofels.com.
All right, and we are thrilled and lucky to be joined by Jake Kocorowski of the Badger Observer. So, Jake, first, give us an update on what you've been up to and tell us about the Badger Observer before we get into what you've seen at camp recently.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. And especially with my schedule just getting back from that hour drive in Platteville. It's really fortunate to start this new Substack subscriptions newsletter called Badger Observer. It's unfortunately I was informed I was no longer part of the Wisconsin State Journal back in late March, and so I've been taking kind of this time to, I wrote it on the side for Wisconsin Badgers on SI, which is part of the Sports Illustrated network for a bit, but I realized kind of my passion's kind of going out on my own and trying to tell some unique stories and for Wisconsin football, Wisconsin recruiting, which I've had a foothold in telling those stories and reporting since about 2014, and then also Wisconsin volleyball. I was yesterday was a double shot for me where I was in Platteville in the morning and I was at the field house in the afternoon. And so my goal with this newsletter is give authentic, unique stories. I know right now there's a lot of practice takeaways during fall camp, but also I'm diving into profiles of players and recruits and going out and traveling. In a couple of weeks, I'm heading down to Florida to watch a couple of Wisconsin commits who play in Naples, and the other one will be playing in Fort Lauderdale. So we got that going on. And so, yeah, it's really just kind of trying to go places where others can't and don't have resources for, and trying to invest in that. But also, like, we've seen how, journalism, local journalism has been just what's happened within the, I'm no longer part of the Badger Extra in the State Journal. You're not seeing, the local, the coverage kind of dwindling. And so my eyes, like, instead of going away, it's like, okay, like, let's fight back. And I want to be a disruptor, and I'm a dreamer in that regard, and trying to have some fun, but also just have fun with it. I mean, and telling those stories and trying to find things that others haven't talked about yet.
Fantastic. So speaking of those stories here, you just left camp today. Who has been impressing you the most so far through camp?
Right. Yeah. I think first off, you start off with I think Wisconsin fans will enjoy this, but it's the running game. And I think that's been really a staple. Jeff Grimes comes in, and you're seeing him utilize this, he comes in with a wide zone scheme, Russian attack. For those that are wondering what that means, well, take a look at what Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, those type of offenses, that kind of tree. Jeff Grimes likes that type of wide zone scheme, and then they can complement that, marry it, however you want to say it. They combine it with a downfield passing attack. And, but going back to that Russian attack, today, you see Dylan Jones reeling off some really nice runs. One that went for, you could say, would be touchdown. I think it's always interesting watching practice, and you see guys running deep, but then you wonder if, like, in real time, if it's actually a game, if players would catch up or make a tackle or whatnot. But Jones had a really nice day, and he's been really decisive in finding the lanes within this offense to make the cuts, the right reads, the right cuts, and then accelerating downhill. And he's a physical back. But you've also seen with Wisconsin, they may have 3-4 backs that could get the ball this year. And you're seeing Darion Dupree, who's another, like Jones, another 4-star recruit back in that 2024 class. I love his all-around game, and I think Wisconsin fans should be excited for him in what he can do out in space in the passing game, but also, he's shown in the past few practices just an ability to run between the tackles even better and making better decisions and being assertive in that regard. And then you have Cade Yakimelli, who I know y'all just talked about him a little bit ago, being part of the Freaks and whatnot. He's got that 4.4 speed. He's got that strength. And I think Wisconsin, we've seen, and Jim, especially with your experience covering Wisconsin teams in the past, that Wisconsin's needed 3 running backs at a time in this type of, run heavy type of offensive scheme. And so I think that's going to be big, and guys can get banged up and, light injuries, and you can see others step up. And I think Wisconsin has a really good problem on their hand as to who will receive carries during the season. I'm guessing all of them will, because we know how the rigors of a Big Ten schedule can go.
Jake, you mentioned it's a good problem to have for the Badgers running back room to have so many capable bodies. But if you had to pick one, and I know this may be tough at this point, that will be the starter in week 1 and maybe receive the lion's share of the carries, who would that be?
Yeah, and just let everyone know, too, Wisconsin doesn't really want us to name starters or whatnot, but I will say, just because of the competition things going on. But, I mean, if I was to say my 2 cents, I would probably say Dylan Jones right now, just because he's kind of received the first up reps in that regard for most of the practices that he's participated in the 11-on-11 periods. This is a kid that, again, a 4-star recruit like Dupree from that 2024 class, which I think that class in general is going to be really prominent with this, in filling in a lot of the gaps and becoming contributors this season in their second years in the program. But he has that ability of being physical, even like, they're not fully padded. They're in shoulder pads like they were today. You can still hear a pop, right? And he does not shy away from contact. But I think that what's really good for Jones is, he makes the reads, and when he explodes in the deeper levels too, he has the vision to make that happen. And that's what you want out of this offense. I think, Dupree's all-purpose type of abilities will really complement. And I think, he can also do things that Jones can do too, and we've seen it during practices where he's had this opportunity and these opportunities to run between the tackles, and he's going into the second level like Jones has. And Yakimelli, I mean, he averaged over 8 yards per carry. I think you saw the 55-yard touchdown during the open public scrimmage too. So I think that, and even Gideon Atuka, who is a redshirt freshman himself, he's a little smaller, but kind of a bowling ball in that regard, but he's got speed though that can get downhill, which is great for this type of offense too. But going back to your question, I think it would be Jones, just from what we've seen, and but I think any one of those guys can step up and become the guy. And we've, like you said, we've seen this before in history with, especially like 2010, in 2012, where Wisconsin's relied upon 3 running backs.
Jake, with the passing game here, I want to talk about some of the receivers, but first, where are we at with Billy Edwards Jr.? I guess there's been some stuff about deep ball accuracy. How much is that needed in an offense to be run first? Obviously, they're going to want to take their big shots, but he's still a quarterback who I think, and he didn't play all the games last year for Maryland, still outperformed the Badgers as a whole with a passing unit. So everything, and with all due respect to Braden Locke, I think I spent a half an hour talking to someone who was just like, loves college football, loves the Badgers, never wants to crap on a player, and it was just like, Braden Locke just killed the Badgers 2 years in a row. But the upgrade from Billy Edwards to the Badgers' former quarterback position overall, and then how concerned are you about maybe his accuracy on deep balls?
I think, with Billy Edwards, I think it's who Jeff Grimes, like his build, he's about 6'3", 228 on the fall camp roster. I think he's kind of the prototypical type of quarterback that Wisconsin and Jeff Grimes wants within this offense. He's got a good arm. He's got the arm talent's there. And it's been, he is QB1. He also has that ability to maneuver in the pocket, and we've seen that a little bit during fall camp where he can extend plays a little bit. If he needs to take off, he can take off. And he, at Maryland, the stats weren't great passing in terms of touchdowns and interceptions. I think it was like 15-8 or something along those lines. But he was third in the conference, in passing yards per game at over 260. So, he's used to throwing the ball, but he has that ability to also, like in the last, 2 seasons, he's had 12 rushing touchdowns for that matter. And so I think, that's what Wisconsin wants with these quarterbacks is you can command the offense. Obviously, you're not necessarily, I think with what happened last year and the year prior is that, with that air raid underneath Phil Longo, having a quarterback that can run, that can kind of be the field general and be the, everything for that offense. We saw how that can hurt an offense, right? I think now where you're seeing this wide zone scheme, the running game kind of take more precedent or take more of an emphasis within the offense. I think that also takes a little bit off the quarterback. And so, but I think with Edwards, I've seen some deep balls. I think it's been fine. Like he hit Vinny Anthony on a really nice pass yesterday for what I think would be a touchdown. And he has I think he's thrown overall pretty good deep balls during like fall camp and when I was there for the spring practices that I was there. So I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. I think the big thing too, we talk about the deep balls, that keeps the defense honest. I think they're going to have opportunities with Vinny Anthony II and Jaden Ballard, both wide receivers who Brady Collins said ran 4.4s during in the summer. And that's what having those guys with that type of speed, you do that that really can keep defense is honest for the run game, and it's something that has been really needed for Wisconsin in the past few years. And so, but back to Edwards, I think I think he'll do well in this offense. And obviously right now we're at this point of fall camp where the defense is, right now is, I feel like almost nearly seen everything the offense has done. So it's very, and whatnot. So maybe they have a little bit of a better read on things within this, facing the offense. But I think Edwards is a good fit for this scheme. And, I think we haven't really fully even seen, I think, what he can do with his feet yet within this offense.
Jake, you mentioned at the end of that answer there, you talked about the wide receivers a little bit and stretching the field. Saw a couple days ago on the Twitter account, the Badgers posted that Eugene Hilton had some crazy one-handed catch. How has he looked so far at camp? And is there any young guy, maybe aside from him, that's caught your eye so far?
Right, yeah, and Eugene Hilton, he's been getting the reps with the twos, with the second-team offense, from what we've seen so far during camp. And Hilton, obviously has the pedigree. His father, T.Y. Hilton, famed Indianapolis Colts wide receiver for so many years and whatnot. But you also have with him, he really burst onto the scene in the spring, and we praised him effusively for making the transition. He was an early enrollee, and that's what you can do as an early enrollee as a freshman, is that you learn the offense, and you saw him make some big plays down the field. We saw even yesterday, it was free play. Essentially, the defense was offsides, and Daniel O'Neill threw up a ball where it hung in the air a little bit too long, was a little short. One of the safeties came by, was just basically underneath it, about ready to, felt like a fair catch, but Hilton went between, in front of him, leapt, got the ball at the high point, came down with the catch. We saw him have a couple of catches today too. It's so I don't know if he's necessarily made like as loud of a splash compared to the spring, and I know people, especially with spring ball to fall camp, there are some differences, but I think he still could be a factor for this offense coming up this season. We'll see just what the running back or the wide receiver rotation is, and just how Jordan Reed in his first year as an assistant works in game function, game situations, especially with Anthony and Jaden Ballard. Chris Brooks Jr. has had a good camp there, and if he stays healthy, I think he'll be a key part of it. Tretch Kekahuna, Tyrell Henry, I think are the five that I feel will be game ready or already are, and I think Hilton has that opportunity too. And I think like I said, he has the skills to really, the ball skills and the receiving skills to, I think, make an impact early on. And we'll see. I'm guessing, next year he will have an even more prominent role there. In terms of other young guys, really, I think one is an in-state player, the state's all-time leading tackler, and Cooper Catalano at inside linebacker. He is he's from Germantown High School, which is just in the Milwaukee metropolitan area. Really, just it's been more and more impressive to kind of watch him, and he's received, some second team reps. Wisconsin, has in my eyes like, Tackett Curtis, Christian Allegro, who, I feel, they've gotten first team reps when they've been in 11-on-11 periods and series, but just kind of figuring out who could be behind them, because we've seen the injuries at inside linebacker throughout the years. And so I think with Catalano, I think he's carved out a role where with the way he can move around the field in terms of pass coverage, but also get down and downhill, I should say, and make plays against the run, or even he got a first team rep from what I saw today, and he chased down Billy Edwards on a scramble. And so that's what you want to see from a linebacker here. And I know everyone talked about Mason Posa, a 4-star recruit who was like I would say the biggest win of Wisconsin's 2025 class. But, Catalano, in my eyes, really stood out as a young player that I feel could, make an impact, maybe on special teams for sure, just to continue to get up to the speed of the game of college football compared to high school. But I think he's also, I feel like he could be in the running for the 2 deep as well.
So glad you mentioned Cooper Catalano. I'm a huge Catalano fan. And does he look like, can you make the Chris Borland comparison yet, given that he's wearing number 44 and making all these splash plays?
And that, and Jim, you've known Chris throughout the years, they got the 44. I would say Cooper's a little bit taller, but it's also hard to compete with. It's hard to, looking back 15, 16 years ago, how good Chris Borland was. And, you don't want to make that comparison too quick. I think Chris Borland was an athletic freak. I'm not saying Cooper Catalano isn't by any stretch, because I feel his athleticism is what's helping him gain these opportunities early on. During not just fall camp but spring ball. But yeah, Chris Borland though was just, there's some things. I would love to do an oral history from former teammates talking about Borland.
The one thing I will say that would work in the Borland comp is he wasn't a starter right away. He was kind of a specialist and did some special teams things, but he was one of those players, just like when Jonathan Taylor got here before he got the job, where you're like, he's kind of kicking everyone's ass, and so like in practice and everything, and then Taylor jumped up quick. Borland took a little bit longer. He still, freshman, was fantastic, but it was more of a specialist in special teams, and then he got the full-time gig, if my memory serves me correct. So it was a quick rise, but there were murmurs early, and then obviously he exploded.
Yeah, and with Catalano too, that's the biggest thing is that Mike Tressel, the defensive coordinator, talked about how he's had more almost nearly verbatim saying he showed he had more of a nose for the ball towards the end of spring ball, and I think you started to see that too during fall camp, and just how he's there are certain plays where all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, there's Catalano, and then the next play, oh, he's right next to the ball, he's covering somebody, and that's where the ball went, and he was right there to make the play there too. And so I think that's it'd be high praise, I think, to be in the same name mentioned as Chris Borland, one of the most underrated recruits in Wisconsin history, and then one of the best linebackers, I would say, in school history, or at least in recent memory in the past 15 years.
Jake, awesome stuff. Again, you can read Jake now at Badger Observer. So, Jake, thanks for hopping on, and we'll definitely have you on again.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, and like I said, y'all, hey, through the end of the month, through the 29th of August, only $50 a year for an annual subscription. Otherwise $7 a month, $69 a year too, man. We're taking it. We're unique. We're authentic, and we also have some fun, as you can tell with the hat as we're streaming right now. So, but thank you guys for having me on. Anytime you need me, I'm here.
Fantastic.
The hat does rock. The fedora is awesome.
The whole outfit. I see some of the floor pattern on a Hawaiian shirt there too, Jake. So, again, Jake Kocorowski, Badger Observers. Jake, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right, that was Jake. This has been the Jump Around, a Badger-dedicated show on ESPN Madison's YouTube stream and streaming on the ESPN Wisconsin app.